Vahiy olmasaydı insanlar aklıyla iyiyi ve kötüyü bulabilir miydi?
Core moral principles and values are known to all people in all times. Propositions such as justice is good and harming an innocent is evil are as true and valid as the sun shines every day and 1 plus 1 equals 2. The earliest Muslim theologians, ulama al-kalam, considered this kind of knowledge to be necessary knowledge, or al-ma'rifa al-daruriya. That is the kind of knowledge that no rational human being is deprived of. This kind of knowledge seems to correspond to what some modern theistic philosophers call general revelation, which is given to all human beings without exception. The capability of human mind to discern good and evil allowed the early Muslim theologians to develop the concept of rational obligation, al-taklif al-aqli. It includes all the judgments of actions that are related to the realm of worldly affairs and human transactions, al-mu'amalat. It is differentiated from religious obligations, al-taklif al-shar'i, that includes ibadat like praying, fasting, that are known only through revelation. However, necessary moral knowledge and the theory of rational obligation were not accepted by all Muslim scholars. It became an issue debated mainly in the works of speculative theology, kalam, and the title, or under the title of Mas'alat al-Husn wal-Qubh, or the issue of good and evil. We can see two distinct positions that emerged concerning this issue. I will try to briefly explain the two positions and highlight the underlying assumption about the divine and human nature implied by each position, before presenting some arguments in support of the position that I think better explains morality in relation to revelation. First, the position of those who held that revelation, or al-shara', indicates morality but does not establish it. In Arabic, al-shara' mubayyan, they held, la muthabbit. According to this view, moral knowledge, or the capacity of human mind to discern good and evil, is part of our primordial nature, or al-fitra. This position can be supported, as indicated by many scholars, by verses from the Quran. Man, unlike other beings, is entrusted and assigned the viceroy, Khalifa on earth, as mentioned, for example, in the second surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 30. Also, verse 10 of Surah 90, Surah Al-Balad, indicates that the ability to distinguish between good and evil is a blessing from God, as it says about man, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ الْمَجْدَيْنِ, which is translated to, we have shown him the two ways, good and evil. In a commentary on this verse, Abdul Jabbar al-Asadabadi, a late 10th, early 11th century theologian and scholar, adds that this indicates that God guided everyone, believers and non-believers alike. Well, it seems that the majority of Muslim jurists and theologians before the 12th century accepted this view. In brief, this is the view that moral knowledge is instilled in us by God, and the revelation indicates that and strengthens our hearts to do what is right. The other view or position is the position of those who denied that man knows what is truly good and evil, and therefore moral obligation cannot be done by human reason. This is expressed in their motto, al-shara' muthabbit wa mubayyan, which means that revelation establishes and indicates morality. This view widely prevailed after the 12th century. But it is worth mentioning also that a similar view about the foundation of morality prevails among the Protestant theologians, including the contemporary divine command theorists. The classical version of different divine command theories that are being still developed in Christianity and Islam. The classical version is the theological voluntarism, or theistic subjectivism, as called by a scholar, an Arab scholar, George Hurani, who was the first to study theories about the foundations of ethics in Islam. Variations or modifications of this divine command theories are developed under the rubric of divine command theory, and that is in different religious traditions, including very recently in Islam. Now, certain assumptions about the nature of man and God underline each of the two mentioned positions. The position of those who affirm moral knowledge apart from revelation, and those who don't. Those who deny the possibility of moral knowledge and rational obligation conceive humans to be guided by whims and passions. Thus, any human perception of good and evil is bound to that selfish nature. And accordingly, the true moral good is beyond the grasp of human mind, and so is the true moral obligation. While those who endorse the view that human mind is endowed with the moral knowledge have a more optimistic view of human nature. Human beings are not necessarily determined by selfishness, and they are not slaves of their whims and passions. They are endowed with moral knowledge that allows them to discern right from wrong and act accordingly, even without the aid of revelation. When it comes to the perceptions of divinity, those who believe in man's capacity to know good and evil and act accordingly emphasize the divine attributes of justice and goodness, while the divine attributes emphasized by those who believe that good and evil are beyond the reach of human mind are the attribute of absolute free will, sovereignty, and omnipotence. And accordingly, divine commands and prohibitions cannot be restricted by logic, morality, or even by God's own good nature. In principle, God could have commanded anything which he is absolutely free, since he is absolutely free, and whatever he commands becomes right by definition. What is truly good becomes what God commands. Thus, moral, legal, and religious obligations all became synonymous to obedience of divine commands and prohibitions. The truly moral action, according to this position, is defined as the action that will be rewarded in the hereafter. Acting for prudential reasons, then, rather than any moral reasons that may ground commands and prohibitions, was prioritized over reason. Well, this position, theological voluntarism, or this classical version of divine command theory, seems at first to be only theoretical. However, it has important consequences and implications, as indicated by some contemporary scholars of Islamic thought. deriving moral judgments from religious texts or by extrapolation from them by methods established in usul al-fiqh became the business of religious scholars, fuqaha, the experts in fiqh to whom common people turn for consultation on matters related to law and morality. Grounding morality in divine commands, believing that the divine commands are the ultimate, final grounds of morality rather than reason, became a dogmatic position that ensured the fuqaha's exclusive access to the true knowledge of legal judgments and moral judgments. Indeed, this is a meta-ethical position that defines good and evil as adherence to commands and prohibitions. And it serves to secure legal and moral authority of the religious scholars and fuqaha in Islamic tradition. Now, there are many arguments in support of this position and in support of the other position as well. But I would like to highlight one of the strongest arguments against this position, other than the fact that there are people who are moral without being religious, and there are people who are religious without being moral. And that argument is that I would like to highlight is that the Holy Quran itself refers to moral values and principles. Principles like respecting one's parents, being kind to others, and values like al-ihsan, al-ma'ruf, al-birr, certainly have meaning that cannot be rendered to following commands or obeying rules. The language and the ethos of the Quran assumes that the addressees understand the meaning of these terms. Thus, those terms have a prior knowledge, or the people who read the Quran and read those moral principles and values definitely have a prior knowledge of good and evil. Also, it is that innate knowledge of basic moral principles that enables reasoning and reflection. Al-nazar and reasoning and reflections is necessary for any acquired knowledge or ma'rifah muktasaba, including the knowledge of the truthfulness of revelation itself and the knowledge of detailed moral rules. The belief that human mind can know the truthfulness of revelation assumes the knowledge of goodness of truth-telling. Accepting the former without accepting the latter is a contradiction. How can anyone hold that human mind is able to know the truthfulness of revelation while holding it incapable of knowing good and evil? As argued by a Lebanese Arab philosopher Adel Daher in his important book, Primacy of Reason, أولوية العقل. But what is then the nature of good and evil, and what is it that grounds morality if not divine commands and prohibitions? And how can we use our knowledge of basic moral values and principles in evaluating moral judgments or constructing judgments? These are questions that I dealt with in a chapter recently published in a book edited by Ziba Mir al-Husseini, Mulki al-Sharmani, and others, entitled Justice and Beauty in Muslim Marriage, with a subtitle Towards Egalitarian Ethics and Laws. But discussion of the nature of good and evil, I think, would take us beyond the objectives of the question.